a motherfucking beast, girl. In this jungle out here, beware. When you see me in these motherfucking streets, girl. Like I don't even care, be clear. I'ma tell you exactly what you wanna hear sometimes. I'ma mean that shit sometimes. I won't mean that shit, I'm trying to find a way to beat that shit. Tell you exactly what you wanna hear, and I'ma have fun with it. Give me your heart and I'll run with it. Give it back in pieces when I'm done with it.
What up, everybody? What's going
Good
on?
morning, good afternoon.
World? What's going on? So we're back for another episode of the Relationship DNA. Damo's not here today, so I tapped in Adina, so she's gonna be the DNA. What up, Dana? How's everything?
Hey, bro, how are you? Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Hello.
So tell us what you've been up to. Everything's good?
Everything is good. You know, when you move from outside of the city into the suburbs, life is more zen-like.
I hear you. Somebody's bougie out there.
I'm bougie. No, I'm far from bougie. I'm just loud and ratchet up here in CT, that's all.
Period.
So we're glad to have our sister Tap back in and join us for another episode.
Yes, it's been a long time.
Yes, it has. So I'm glad to have you back.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
So we briefly discussed the topic. So we'll announce the topic to everybody first, and then we'll go into everything else that's going on. Today's topic is called, So You Trust Me to Make You a Mother, but You Don't Trust Me to Be a Father. Co-parenting.
Co-parenting can be stressful, honey.
We're going to get into that, but before we get into the topic, let's hit everybody with our morning affirmation. These are the good words that we hope that you take in your mornings, that you can use throughout your journey, that'll give you some encouragement. So, Dina, what you got for the folks?
So I picked this one because it also kind of tied into our conversation earlier this morning. So today's affirmation is, I don't always have to read the entire book to understand what I want. Sometimes life opens us up just to the right page. I felt like that one spoke to my soul because it actually popped up on my phone earlier today. But in life, I find like we try to do so much by the book and by structure, and that's just not what life is really about. We may start off in like chapter 1, but somehow end up in chapter 15, and that is the chapter that we are to be in at that time. So I feel like this affirmation just spoke a lot.
Yo, that's some powerful words, though. Somebody's in a zen-like mode out there.
I'm telling you.
So, on top of that, I will add to my morning affirmation as sometimes miscommunication is okay. It's all about how you recover, how you grow, how you expand, how you adjust. So everything's not going to be perfect in communication. Everybody's brain process is different, develops different, identifies different. If you want to get to the understanding of somebody's true words or true meanings, just ask. Ask a little more, go a little deeper into the topic, peel back the layers of the onion so you can truly understand what's being delivered. But hopefully down the line, everybody can get to some true understanding in their communication skills. So continue to work.
That's a good one too. Yes, that's a continued work in progress. That was a good one for me because in my work, communicating is like on the top of my list. So I make sure that I don't hold anything in. And if I feel something, I communicate it right then and there. I'm really learning on how to deliver it because I want to always make sure that I'm heard, as well as if somebody's communicating with me. I want to be able to have an understanding of what they're saying. So that way I know how to move going forward. I don't want anybody to just say what they're saying and then I hear it, but from my perspective, and I'm not treating them or the relationship right. And I want the same thing. So communicating is a big thing. And I think a lot of stuff goes awry because of the breakdown in communication.
Definitely. There is so many layers that spiral out of control from miscommunication. That's one reason why I don't send too many text messages. The minute I feel like point, I'll call you. Let's stop
Yeah.
going back and forth. Let's figure out what's being said. How do we hurry up and get this conversation done in 5 seconds than a 30-minute text? So
absolutely. Yeah. Texting and email is never good when you want to have like a real heart to heart of communication, because it can go left so quickly.
definitely. So now that we hit them with the morning affirmation, are you ready
Yes.
to jump into our relationship role play?
Yeah. I get to be my ex co-parent. I get to play him in a sense. So I get to be like him.
For the viewers, this relationship role play is where we write down a scenario attached to the topic. We act it out for about 2-3 minutes to see where it goes. So the scenario is a father has just won custody of the children and thus won the child support.
Mm-hmm.
A few weeks later, the mother calls the father to ask to be taken off of child support, and the father disagrees, and we go from there.
Okay.
Dina got the character trait of anger, and I have the character trait of deflector.
Okay.
So let's see where this thing goes. Are you ready to start it?
I gotta come in guns blazing, huh? Okay.
Yes, yes,
God,
yes. Get into
you're
character.
ruining the zen. You're ruining the zen already.
You gotta get into character. You love acting.
No, not really, but we could do this.
All right, so let's start. You call me. Ring, ring.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? I'm doing all right.
That's great. Do you have a moment?
Sure.
So I wanted to know, like, with this whole situation as far as child support goes, I would like to talk to you about you considering taking me off.
Why would I do that?
I mean, what is the point? I don't have any problems with helping you out when the kids need stuff, but to keep me on full child support, I just don't understand. Like, I feel like we can work something out amongst ourselves.
So let me ask you a question. When it was reversed and I was on child support and I asked the same thing, you didn't grant me the same grace. So why should I grant you the grace?
We're not talking about the past, though. We're
No,
talking about like right now.
we're not talking about us. We're talking about you.
Right. We're talking about me in the present tense, not in the past. So we're not even revisiting the past tense of your situation. I'm just talking to right now as to the present. And if there's a way that we can work it out amongst ourselves.
We can work it out by you experiencing how it feels to be on child support for a while.
So this is tit for tat. That's what you're saying.
No,
Because
it's not
it
tit.
kind of sounds, it's kind of coming off like a little petty.
It's not tit for tat. It's the law, as they told me when I was on child support.
But are you hearing what you're saying though? Because
Yeah,
how you're presenting it is like, this is what happened to me, so you just gonna have to deal with it.
I'm just saying that at
Kind
some
of giving
point,
tit for tat vibes.
I'm just saying that how is it that it's okay for me to experience it and struggle when I'm not getting full paychecks and I'm telling you that, you know, I'm a great father, I'm here for the children, and you wouldn't want to take me off, but now
I wasn't able to do it. I wasn't
Why?
able to do it then.
That doesn't make any sense.
I needed all the help I can get back then. And I need help now. So that's why I'm coming to you.
Well, I have the kids now, so I'm the one that needs the help.
And I'm not saying that I'm not gonna help. I'm just saying that if we can go on a need by basis.
How about we revisit this in like a year so I can figure out how I would move
But I need the help now. Like a year.
I just don't see how we can just adjust automatically when you need it.
I don't understand what the issue is. Like, we can figure it out, and who's to say it's going to be permanent? It could go right back to what it is in a month or so, or even maybe in 6 months. I'm just asking for the right now. If you need something, let me know and we can take it from there.
But how about this?
But the child support is just like right now, it's just not working for me. It's not feasible.
So why don't you give me an opportunity just to pray on it? Let me see what Jesus tells me to do.
Oh, so we just want to be petty all the way.
I'm not being petty. I really want to talk to my God and see, like, is this a blessing in disguise that I'm getting the money now? Or should I just let you off because that's the Christian thing to do? I need to figure that out for a second.
Go with God, because God will tell you to take me off.
Time. That was good. I enjoyed that.
That was actually fun. That was a good one.
I hope the viewers enjoyed the role play as well. I enjoy doing these little skits here and there. And I hope like it makes the episodes fun before we get into the meat and bones of the topic. All
A
right,
good way to
y'all.
kind of like approach the conversation. You're absolutely right.
So now back to this topic. So you trust me
Mhm.
to make you a mother, but you don't trust me to be a father. The plagues of co-parenting. When you hear that topic in its totality, what comes to mind?
So you trust me enough to make me your mom. Okay, let's see here. So there's like the difference between men and women in a sense. And I'm not going to say all women. Naturally, women have this instinct that they are automatically turned on as a parent from the time of conception. We don't have it so easy to just walk away as to where men. And again, I'm not saying all women, because there are women who have willingly walked away from being a parent and just left it with the father, which is a topic that I feel should get more light, because there are a lot of single fathers out there who have been doing it from day one and they don't get the recognition that they deserve. But for the moms who take on that role, they have to continue to push through no matter what their life circumstance is, because ultimately they still have to parent, especially when it's just them in the household. And a lot of the times the fathers tend to move in life as if parenting comes second and everything in their life comes first. So there's always that battle that goes on. And there are women who tend to seek child support as a gotcha type of thing. I'm gonna get you back. Like it's more of a punishment instead of the actual need. I'm okay with child support when it's needed, not when it's done out of a space of ill intent. As a parent, neither parent should just feel like they don't have to help out financially. Like to me, I just find that to be baffling, that the minute we separate is like your role as a parent goes out the window.
Mhm.
If the courts have to get involved, then the courts should get involved. And some people use it as a way to make sure that everything is done properly instead of having to chase you down. As to where you have situations where it's done as a I'm gonna just fuck up your life type of thing. Men don't look at it the same way that we like women do. Like when you guys, I don't think either party though looks at it like, yes, this is the perfect father that I want in my life. Do you think so?
Well, you said a whole lot. So let's how do I say this? I am all for child support when a father is completely absent. I don't understand why current times in society a breakup or a failed marriage equates to child support. I don't know why that has become a notion.
I agree.
If you were married, that means that y'all were playing this game together, correct?
Right.
In some form of way. If you were to living together and you had a kid, y'all were playing this some way, but if you just happen to get pregnant and he's like, I don't want nothing to do with the child, then okay, you're setting a precedent that you're not going to be involved. Now it would make sense for the courts to get involved. And the main issue I have with the court thing, it's never in the best interest of the child. It's in the best interest of the court, which is foreign to a lot of people in the court system, that they get a cut no matter what. That's why it's $1 billion business. The money that you would get is kind of shortened to pay for the court fees and all the stuff like that. So everybody's actually getting less than they're supposed to. So there's a way to work it out. Why even get the courts involved? And as a former person that worked in a court, worked in a law firm, they said that we're the last option when it comes to custody or divorce. You know why? Our job is to win. It's not for the best interest of the child or the spouse. We need to
Right.
figure out, one, how much money you have, to see how much we can put you in court for, because the lawyers we go up against, we're all co-workers, we're colleagues. We just work for different teams.
Right.
So we need to know where the money is and how long we're going to bleed you in court. But it's never in the best interest of you or your children. It's the best
Right.
interest to get our wins, because who wants to hire a lawyer that loses?
Agree.
So it's a lot of
Absolutely.
parameters to this court system thing. But I want to bring it back to, in your surroundings, from what you see, do you think society kind of paints the picture that men are just absent in children's lives, or is that something that you actually see?
So for us, I would say like, it's not only something that is constantly painted, it is something that we do see a lot more of compared to, I would say, when I had my son. In the last 23 years, you do see more of an uptick, and you see a lot of damage in these relationships. The men feel a way towards the woman and vice versa, because there's so many unresolved and pent up feelings. No one is thinking about the child, honestly. Everybody, they're just more engrossed in the fight against each other. So I think there needs to be more of a deeper look, because single fathers are constantly looked over. The dads that, even if they're no longer in a relationship with the mom, but still very active in the children's lives, they're not praised enough for the things that they do. It has to go across the board. You know, we can clap hands for the single mom all the time, but we need to also clap hands for the single active fathers. Instead, we see way too much of the dads that are just out here living their lives while their children are just left behind, not knowing what the hell is going on. And these children are growing up feeling, well, internally dealing with all these feelings as to why they're not good enough for their father to be around, because the father is so stuck in their anger towards the mom. They're not even considering the child's feelings. You guys don't have to get along to raise a child. It is better when both parents get along, because it makes the co-parenting situation easier. But there's so many other avenues in order to still be made a part of your child's life, instead of just you're so focused on your ill feeling towards the mom that you just dismiss the child altogether.
I will agree that on both sides, there's this pent up anger against each other that prevents the co-parenting or the communication. I want to ask, how do you feel towards those, since we talked about from the father's perspective of being pent up anger against the mothers, how do you view the mothers, just these specific crop of mothers that have the same pent up anger against the father, but raises the children and doesn't actually put more better qualities or outcomes into the children?
As far as like qualities, give me an example.
A lot of times we're seeing history repeat itself.
Okay.
And when I say repeat itself, I'm saying in our age range, I hear a lot of women complain about boys being mama's boys, or boys not knowing how to step up, not how to man up, how to take control, make decisions, stuff like that. But then I'm watching them raise their kids not do the same thing. And I'm kind of like, you just creating the same pattern that you're complaining about. How do you view that situation?
So you're saying that this is the thought process of the mom, but instead of her, even though that's her feeling, instead of her not having her child maybe around good fatherly types so they can learn, you don't see them doing that.
Yeah, it's like just doing something to change the narrative or change the outcome.
I think a lot of that ties into the frustration and the anger. It's kind of hard to do that. So speaking from my experience, right? My son's father and I separated when he was probably about 8, maybe. Because there was back and forth. his role was a prime example of what I'm talking about, because when him and I were on good terms, that being around all the time and that dad that he was when we were together, it wasn't the same. And it was more because even in our conversations now, like he will admit to it. So it's like you're doing it out of the same because you're trying to punish me in some kind of way, leaving all the responsibility on me. But what ends up happening is there's a lot of pent up feelings between the son and the dad in my case. So as my son is an adult now, like he is able to communicate his feelings a lot more, but out of his own mouth, he also has admitted to not seeing that type of dynamic. Is you kind of look to everyone else on your own to kind of get what you feel like you're missing. I feel like maybe if, communication, we talked about that earlier, if we just learn to really just put the child first and communicate with the intent of bringing up our child as best as possible, we can remove our people from the court systems as much as possible. We can put our own legal document together, notarize it or whatever, because that can hold up in a court of law if we ever decide, like, you know what, we gonna have to take this to the court. If we just took the time out to remove the emotions from things and just work as a unit, we don't have to be together to work as a unit. We can be apart and work as a unit. There's so many beautiful examples of blended families out there. We can all work together. If we're outside of the courts don't have nothing else to do. The money is going to be gone. They're gonna have to figure out another way, basically. But let's work together. Nobody wants to put their feelings aside. Women we are emotional creatures, right? But we take on a lot. And I have to speak as a Black woman that we're kind of already trained to be able to just handle everything, no matter what, and just push through in life. But with doing that, we're holding so much emotion in that we're angry most of the time, but we are angry for valid reasons. We are angry because why does it have to be a constant conversation for you to do what you need to do as the other parent? Why do I always have to end up holding the bag all the time? It's okay for you, and when I say you guys, I don't mean all men, but it's okay for you guys to say, you know what, I'm not able to come and pick them up this weekend because of whatever reason, or it's okay for you to miss a parent-teacher conference because of whatever reason. It's okay for you guys to just not be present all the time when we don't have that option at all. We gotta just continue to push through it, and a lot of times go home and just sit in our rooms and end up crying. No one thinks about all of those things that comes along. It's just so much focus on, well, you took me to court. I took you to court because you're not constant. I took you to court because I'm tired of having to drown all the time, taking on the financial responsibility by myself. And people don't want to see all aspects of the situation. They just want to focus on these little things that we see on a daily basis. But let's peel back the layers. There's not just the women going to court because they want to hurt you financially because we're no longer together. A great number of these women are because they can't do it anymore by themselves.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Why don't you think the courts start implementing mandatory co-parenting counseling instead of the financial and visitation aspects? Don't you think some type of...
What are they going to get out of that if that happens? What are they going to get out of that if it's successful? What are they gaining? They don't gain anything from that, so why should they?
Interesting. So you're pointing out that the systematic, it's there to keep dysfunction.
Listen, we're not going to get into these systematic conversations, but there are a lot of truth to it. Yeah. I mean, that could have been implemented a long time ago, but then the number, like you were saying, the financial aspect of it goes out the window.
Mhm.
So no, we're not going to suggest that.
So why do you think it appears nowadays that more parents, men and women, that go to court for child support tend to stress the finances versus the actual visitation and bond with the child?
I mean, do you not see the cost? I mean, shit. You know how much it costs? Outside of raising a child, we got rent. Some people have rent and utilities. Not everyone's rent includes utilities. We have medical. Do you know how much medical is when it's you and a child that comes out your one and only check?
So I understand that as a parent and a person who
I didn't even
unfortunately,
get to the clothes and the food.
as a person who unfortunately is in this systematic system against not if anything that I feel like I've done, but I don't mind my children being on my insurance. I love my insurance. I think I have some of the great insurance. The only issue that I have when it comes to child support is when people say rent. If you live on your own, you would have rent regardless. You would have utilities regardless. So we should only factor in exactly what is supposed to be contributed to the child. And if I can provide it, then why do we even need to go to the court? Because I feel like a lot of times people use that rent thing, and I'm kind of like, you would have it regardless. You would have light, gas, and water regardless. So why try to use that as a selling point?
Well, because now we have other things on top of that, because we do anticipate that we have to pay that stuff, right? But now we don't no longer just have those items. We have additional items that is now overall a part of all the other things. But to my knowledge, because I've never gone through the system, that's what is rent isn't contemplated in that, correct?
When they talk about child support?
Yeah.
No, they only factor in how much money you make for the year. They don't count taxes. They don't count student loans. They don't count credit card debt. They don't
that's
count
like everywhere.
They don't count how much your rent is versus how much the other person's rent is. They're like, yo, this is a percentage, and you got to figure it out. Like one of the most shocking things
But
I
that
ever heard.
percentage is to cover like what is mainly stuff for the child, correct?
But they don't even know where the money's. Nobody knows where the money's going. The bottom line is systematically, depending on the amount of children you have, they get a certain percentage regardless.
Right, but from my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, the percentage is contemplative of childcare. It's contemplative of medical. Yeah, so it's the percentage is more contemplative based off of the actual child's needs. It's not looked at as saying, okay, but so this is what you're going to get. Now how the parent chooses to spend the money, that's a different story, because no one knows how the money is going to be spent.
But I think personally, if you're going to do all of that factoring in, you're factoring now the person that you're taking money from, how will they survive? I mean, shouldn't that be factored in? Like, should I have to work and be homeless? It's not. It's not. And in my experience, I know everybody has a different court experience, and it depends on your judge. It depends on your county. But there was a situation a few years ago where she was claiming that she needed childcare. And they told us to submit our affidavits for our bills. And the judge said out loud, based on what you have here, you don't make enough money to take care of yourself. Why should I give you an increase? And she said, well, I'm paying this person to pick up my child. I'm paying this person to do this. And the judge turned to me and said, okay, Mr. Smalls, we're going to give her an extra $150. I said, so that leaves me with $100 with a $2,000 rent. How am I supposed to survive? And she said, that's the law. And it was at that point where the first time I thought about committing a crime. That was the first time I ever.
In order to be able to survive or to attack them?
She told me I was only going to have $100 to my name to pay all of my bills, while saying she was mismanaging her money, but she was gonna give her more of my money. And I had to figure out how I'm gonna survive. It was at that point where I was just like, this system doesn't make any sense.
So yes, in that sense, I agree. And I've never been a big fan of how the government calculates anything, because everything is calculated based off of before taxes. No one spends what they get before taxes. If they did, we would not be in the situations that a lot of us are in. So I never understood that. And there's a show that comes on. It's one of my mom's guilty pleasures, but it's like I think it's a show called Child Support Court or something like that. And one day I was watching it with her, and the judge is like in somewhere down south. But based on their law in that particular state, he makes a lot of money, but because of the law, the mom was only allowed to get like a certain amount, and it was a small amount. And the mom was just like, I just don't understand, like he makes such and such and such. But the judge broke it down, and that was the first time I learned that it was just like, okay, so I know that every state is different, but as far as like the calculations and things like that, every state has their different max and minimums. But every state still calculates everything before taxes, which is asinine to me, because as government employees, they don't even spend what they get before taxes. So that is a formula where I feel needs to be recalculated and refigured out. Like, these are laws that have not been changed in God knows how long, but it's because of those laws that leave people in a situation that they're not financially okay in. Because like you were saying, the judge is seeing that she's literally mismanaging her money, but because of the law, she has no choice but to say, well, Mr. Smalls, I'm sorry, unfortunately, you're just gonna have to give an additional 150, and I guess you're gonna have to shake your ass at Sue's Rendezvous to kind of make up the difference to pay your actual bills.
Yes.
So I think there needs to be some lobbying when it comes to reform child support as well.
I will give her credit that during that back and forth in court, we agreed that instead of her paying somebody to get them, I would leave work early. Now I got paid hourly, so me leaving work early, I'm making less money. But it was a better trade-off than being left with $100 a week to pay all my bills. So I was kind of like, but that's the reason why eventually at some point I had to have a bunch of roommates to offset not losing an apartment and being homeless. So I don't want to be too far on the child support thing. So the last thing I'll ask you in terms of child support is, if the courts granted custody to the parent who least needed child support, do you think they would still be as flooded as people demanding child support?
Who least need the child support?
Meaning this person is saying, I need the child support money. And they're saying, well, since you can't survive and take care of the child, we're going to grant the other person custody because they don't need it. Do you think the court system would be as packed or as demanding to seek money if that was the ultimatum?
I'll be honest, there's going to be a lot of irate baby mamas. And that's just me speaking honestly, because you have the percentage who go because they need the help and no one is helping. And then you have the percentage that goes as a way to like, I'm gonna fuck your life up. And without that, they can no longer wreak havoc in a sense in that father or mother's life, because that was the only thing that they were able to use to like piss them off in a sense. That group right there would be upset. How much you want to bet a lot of them will figure it out real quick, because that's not something that they actually wanted. They just wanted that financial punishment.
So let's bring it back to the topic. Trust me to make you a mother, but you don't trust me to be a father. The plagues of co-parenting. Why is it so hard to co-parent?
Look at, where did we get examples of co-parenting from?
I guess your community, your society, your family, your subfamilies,
There
your
weren't
extended
that
family.
many broken homes back then, so they didn't have to worry about co-parenting.
You know what? I'm gonna challenge you on that. I'm gonna
Okay,
say there. I'm gonna say there
come
was as
on.
many. I'm gonna say there was as many broken families back then. The only difference is we
Hmm.
were more of a community back then.
That I will agree with you to an extent. I would say yes.
Because the
You
only reason I'm
had,
saying
you know,
that
your
is
neighbors and everybody were involved. So yes,
yes.
you're
Now,
right in
now you can't discipline your neighbor's child. You can't even talk to them and tell them, "Hey, you're being bad," because that's seen as an attack on their child and the person's parenting, and that can start a fight or a shootout. But back in the days, I remember
that.
getting popped by somebody's grandmother because I cursed and I
Hmm.
shouldn't. And then my mom came home, you cursed in front of blase blase, and you got popped,
Hmm.
and it just continued. So
Yeah.
you knew from that time, there's certain things you can't do in the community. I remember being young and being down the
Hmm.
hill where you couldn't be on the corner because that's where all the drug dealers kind of did their thing. But if you got
Hmm.
caught, then this person would beat you. You tell your parents this person would beat you, or a
Hmm.
fight break out. But once this person's grandmother hit that corner, you stop the fight immediately. You let her go inside the building,
Right.
and then you continue to
Hmm.
fight. And I feel like all of those community togetherness, respect, guidelines, rules are kind
Agreed.
of out the door nowadays.
I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
There's so many things, like so many fine lines when it comes to co-parenting, or having a community. Like you were saying, there's so many fine lines that people don't want to get involved, and they find it's a little bit easier to mind their business. You still have those people, but when I think back on it now, the people who as a community will step in and say something, they are older, because that's something that they were accustomed to. So I mean, let's just say in this day and age, as an example, you have social media and you have all these examples of perfectly co-parenting, blended families, and all this community support. Maybe there will be a shift going back in that direction. But I also feel like if it's not an example that you have, it's not going to be that easy to just say, like, we're going to be the example of co-parenting.
Mhm.
Some
What a
people do want to do better than how they were raised or how their parents were raised. And then there are people who are just comfortable in staying in the same space.
what are some of the top things that you say plague the downfall of co-parenting? What are some of the top issues co-parenters have?
One of the top issues is communication.
Mhm.
The Another thing is parenting style. Everybody has their own parenting style, but again, that also ties into communicating, because let's figure out a way that we both can agree on that will be the overall parenting style when it comes to our child, because everybody's parenting style is different. Just because you see this over here doesn't mean that it's going to work for us over here. And then I also feel, and which is kind of, I think, crazy to say, but I feel finances play a big part in co-parenting as well.
Mhm. I just feel like if there is no uh anger or hatred towards one another,
Hmm.
it's the easiest way to get to co-parenting faster. Even if
I
if
agree.
one even if both sides are open to not only therapy to figure out how to
Hmm.
co-parent, but also self-therapy to figure out how
Hmm.
to overcome those anger or blockages that create the miscommunication. Because I feel like we were talking about text messages earlier. And a
Hmm.
lot of times I tell people, you got to remember that person that you're texting is reading it from that voice of that anger that they had towards you. And it could be,
Hmm.
how was your day? But it could be, well, how was your day? If they're reading it from
Yes.
that space, you're going to get a different text message. Now, if you have the same
Hmm.
feelings towards that person, then you're going to read it from this space.
Hmm.
That's why I always eliminate the minute I think the text message or whatever's going
Right.
around, let me call you, because I don't want it to be a buildup of back and forth of something that happened way
Hmm.
back then. And we're still kind of living it to this day. And that's one of the
Right.
reasons why I feel like the co-parenting is so hard to get over, because there's some unhealed wounds that need to be healed. Or even there are some wounds that are being protected and they're attracting the brokenness. So I experienced it with this person and I didn't like it, but now I'm going out there into the world. I still want to feel that feeling that I got from that person, but I just don't want it to look like this. So I'm going to have you behave and act a certain way that's not truly you, but you are acting accordance of how I want you to act to get what you want. And now after you get what you want, we're back at square one as another person came and left because people ain't you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a weird dynamic.
I agree. I think so. Again, you know, we also come from a time where effectively communicating your feelings or even seeking any form of therapy was not a thing to do, right? So with coming from that, you have a lot of people still stuck in that space. You know, a lot of people are now reaching out for help, realizing that they're needing help. And to be honest, I feel like it was because of COVID. A lot of people had to face like, you know what, I'm fucking damaged. Like, it's not always everyone else. It's I play a part in it as well. So people have to be in a space to one, admit their faults, take some form of accountability, and find ways and actively put in the work to move away from all the things that have caused a lot of these broken relationships where we can't even communicate effectively to hear one another out. Because like you were saying, when you're having a conversation, because this is something that I know I've been taking in as well, and just having conversations with people in general. And one of the things is like I found myself getting a little frustrated because it was like I'm saying something, but it wasn't being heard in how I'm saying it. I started, and then in the conversation, I'm realizing that the person is hearing it how they want to hear it. And the reason why I'm being a repetitive in explaining my position is because they're not hearing it, no matter how I phrase it. They're not hearing it. They're only hearing it from how they want to hear it. And when you get to that understanding, you learn to deal differently in having conversations with that individual. So you have to put more work into how you're going to phrase things with a particular individual if you want it to be received. Sometimes you might have to say it in their voice in your head in a sense, so that way when they're hearing it, they can hear it from their point of view and it registers and it's like it's okay, because we all hear things differently. But I also feel like if you're committed in making that relationship work to where it's cohesive for both parties involved, you're going to take time to actually understand where the person is coming from. And if you're not, if you feel like there's some kind of gray area, ask questions like you said earlier. So that way, when we leave this conversation, we are both on the same page and we're still committed in keeping the relationship in a good space and not have to worry with the back and forth.
Well, I will agree. Definitely communication, repetitive, try to think of the other person point of view. The one term that I use to everybody is, yo, flip the coin. There's two sides to the coin. If you're coming from your side, then you need to flip it and see how the other person hears it, might dissect it, and then might respond. So sometimes even before you give your answer, your point of view, flip it really quick and see how you can now shorten the gap in communicating with the person. One of the best things that I do that I've learned from, and this is a cheat code, so don't try to use it against me, anybody out there, but this is just useful. In court, the prosecutor and the lawyers, basically, they control the conversation by asking the questions. That's the fastest way to get to an understanding. So if I say something to somebody and they don't get it, I'll say, well, tell me what is it that you understood that I said? And then they have to tell me how they processed it. Now I'm like, oh, that's how you saw it. This is what I meant. Versus me saying it over and over again, hoping you catch it. What did you hear? So I know how your brain works.
Mm-hmm.
And that way I
And
can
that's
lead the witness.
pretty much it. Yes, the way that person's brain works. So in dealing with it in that cheat code type of way, you now avoid a lot of somewhat frustrations, because now you may be a little frustrated and upset. Like, it's like, damn, like how many different ways do I have to say it for you to understand and hear where I'm coming from? So you doing that, it actually will make things somewhat easier. Or if that other person is feeling like, no, like I'm asking this or I'm saying it this way because I want to understand you, you know, that keeps the conversation flowing, and it just continues to help build a relationship into a healthy relationship. When you think about it, there are a lot more unhealthy relationships than there are healthy relationships. And in some places, from what I see more, like a lot of people are more committed into making more healthier relationships because, truth be told, and I think it's because everyone gets older as well. Like a lot of us are getting older. No one has the time and the energy for that. And when you really sit back and do the work, because there's a difference between sitting back and looking at things from different perspectives and making notes, is also being active in the work to make your relationships as well as yourself a better person. It's a lot easier to say things, but when you're actively putting, sorry.
You just jumped off camera for a second. It's all good.
Oh, sorry. Yes, my aunt was calling and I forgot to put on Do Not Disturb. But when you put in the work, you will also see how much healthier the relationships can be. It's great to say, like, you know what, I did some self-reflecting and this is what I see. But it's also like, I did some self-reflecting. I see my part in the situation. I'm learning the tools so that way I can do better, and then I don't continue to create the same situations that were constantly happening. So in an example of co-parenting, listen, I realized that by me saying or doing this, it kind of takes our conversation in a different direction that I don't want, and I don't find that it's feasible for what we're trying to do in regards to our parenting. I was thinking of doing X, Y, and Z. Like, it keeps the other parent not feeling that they always, the hell? I'm so sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. Just keep talking and then come back on camera as you talk.
Okay. It makes that other parent feel like they don't have to be as guarded. And like every time they have a conversation with you, like, it's, you know, sometimes you go in like, oh my God, because it's the person that something is going to go wrong automatically. But when you start having those types of conversations, it becomes more smooth.
Mm-hmm. So I want to jump to this aspect of the topic in terms of the troubles of co-parenting. Mm-hmm. Why do most mothers tend to view the child as theirs versus both of y'all's? If you both created them, not a person that you had a child with that you're not together. I'm talking about actual, you're in a relationship or you're engaged or you're married. Why do women tend to view that child as just strictly theirs and not his?
That I cannot answer because I never understood that either. I mean, as much as Kevin and I were not always on the same page, I've never said it was never just solely my child. If anything, he has two parents. Stop saying things to me like I was always he has two parents. So I've never understood that. It never made sense to me, but maybe for a parent, let's just say, because I'm trying to look at it from a different perspective, but let's just say it's a single mom who the dad is just not active at all, has never been active. I guess at that point you will just sit there and say like, no, that's my child.
The only reason why I'm bringing that up is because even in my day-to-day aspects, in my community, in my family, people that are married, still the mothers be like, that's my child. And I'm just like, you had them together. Even sometimes I have my mother come from that space of my child, I gotta protect him, I gotta do this. And it's kind of like, no, we have dad too. So why you're not viewing it as that? I always wanted to try to get an understanding of why that territory aspect of mine tends to
It could also be the 9 long agonizing months. Some people go days in labor. I mean, your little 5 minutes of fun has truly changed the course of my life in all ways. So maybe that's why.
Well, I thought that was one of the reasons why when these relationships don't go well, there's an automatic division, because that possession comes in. And possession is also 9 cents of the law, which is also reflective of that whole child support and custody thing, because whoever files is claiming possession.
That's a different way to look at it. That I've never like really sat and thought on, because I'm with you. Like, I just never understood that, especially in the sense like, it's like, okay, well, it's just our child, but then we want you to be involved and active, but then you kind of take over everything. Like, if it's not our way, then it's the highway. So how does that work?
It's interesting. So that's why I had put that question down. Then my last question that connects to the topic is, why does society tend to place blame on men for not wearing condoms, but not on women for not taking birth control pills?
Society. I mean, there's birth control commercials all over the place. You don't even see a condom commercial.
No, I'm talking about in this situation on the topic, you trust me to make you a mother, but you don't trust me to be a father, taking all of those components and saying there's a message in society. Deadbeat dads, there's no opposite that was created to deflect deadbeat moms. It's all these things that just attack the identity of an absent man. And it's like, you got her pregnant, and it's kind of like, but they take birth control as well. Why isn't everybody held accountable across the board for the conception of this process and this child?
I think both parties are held accountable. I think the conversation could be louder. It's not a conversation that's spoken on all the time. I'm big on suggesting that women don't take birth control, then you guys walk around with condoms as well. Like, don't rely on the male to be the only one to have condoms. From my experience with birth control, and for a lot of women of color in their experience with birth control, is just not a thing. There's a lot of risks that come along with birth control, especially when you're on birth control for a long period of time, which they don't talk about enough. Is when you're on birth control straight for years, that plays a part in when you're actually actively trying to have a baby. Some people have had to have their tubes flushed because of the blockage that the birth control has caused. So there's a lot of health issues that I would say as to women who just aren't on birth control. But with that being said, you have to be cautious in other ways if you don't want to be pregnant. It's not the man's sole responsibility to make sure that they're wrapped up. Are you that comfortable with them not being wrapped up? Like, why are you so comfortable? That kind of sounds judgy as I say it out loud, but the reality is that you go to lay down with this individual, right? Without the intent of actually procreating. Do you not want to protect yourself from other things as well? And why are you so comfortable with leaving it to the male to make sure that you guys are both protected? I'm gonna get slack. I kind of feel it, but I honestly don't care. like you said, it takes two to tango in a situation. It's like, okay, we go into a gunfight. But I'm gonna say I'm going to just come to this fight because I'm like, well, Anthony, the male, he's gonna have the gun, he's gonna have the ammo, and now we have to fight, both looking at each other. So because you are the male, I'm just okay with leaving my life in your hands. I'm gonna come with my own 9, and I hope you bought yours too, because I'm not shooting for you. Like, I gotta take care of myself.
Listen, I love that analogy. And I personally, as a parent, speak to the older two, because the young one, she still got time before she starts her dating.
Yeah.
But the older
Exactly.
two, I always say, I need you to understand some things in life that are not really taught in school or spoke about. And the number one thing you need to realize is sex was created for one purpose. And that number one purpose is procreate.
Oh, it's not for the enjoyment?
No,
Okay.
that's not what it is. So I teach them that sex is the number one reason to have sex is to create a lineage. That's why people be fruitful and multiply. When you get married, you are now having sex to have a deeper bond and connection with your spouse or whatever, fiance, and that's the other purpose. Outside of those two purposes, what is your purpose of having sex? So if you are fucking without a purpose, more than likely you're gonna get some shit you can't get rid of, or you're gonna put yourself in a situation you can't run from.
Yeah.
So I need you to have sex with a purpose. So if you're having sex without a condom, if you're having sex without thinking about having a baby, without getting STD, that means you were fucking without a purpose, and now you got to deal with the consequences. So that's the message I'm trying to put out there, to make sure that they're aware of, listen, I was young and I went out there and I did everything because people said you're supposed to do it. But when I look over everything, not everybody was worthy of experiencing me. Not everybody was worthy of having my energy or my spirit run through that.
Yeah.
Not everybody's worthy of me taking on their soul ties or taking on their toxic spirit from having sexual energy with other people.
Right.
You gotta cherish yourself.
On this beautiful.
That's the message that I try to put out there, on top of, listen, we're not even gonna focus on protection, we're gonna focus on what can happen if you go down this path. So always plan ahead versus just doing it on a whim and then wonder why you got some luggage you can't get rid of.
Right. I'm a big proponent on giving girls condoms to walk with, having the open and raw conversations, because it's needed. Like, those conversations weren't held with me when I was growing up. I mean, granted, I had my son considering pretty late, I would like to say, and it wasn't late. I mean, 21 is not late, but I had friends who had children when we were still in high school. So, just some life experiences. I've been very big on having the most open and honest and raw conversations as possible, which is why I like to say that I'm not a granny yet, because having those conversations with my son, and I'm also glad like him and his girlfriend are in that space. The thought of that is what makes them run for the hills, if anything. So I do believe, especially nowadays where, oh, bless you.
Oh, you heard that in the background?
Yeah. I feel like texting her like, bless you, girl. Having those open conversations, they're needed now more than ever, because our children and nieces and nephews and our grandchildren are living in a day of technology where they can just go and figure things out on their own. I don't want you figuring out anything on your own. Let's talk about it so you can make the best conscious decision for yourself and your partner, I will say.
I will concur. The number one thing I tell the children is, we have smartphones, but a lot of dumb users. Just use your phone.
Ooh, that's a good one. That is a good one.
Your phone, you can just speak to it and they'll talk back and give you all the information you need.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So as we start to get to the end of the episode, do you have any questions, any follow-ups, anything you want to ask me?
Well, here's the question, because we this is a topic, and I know that you're kind of well versed in this situation. Like, what are your views on the whole child support dynamic? Like, what do you think that there are any ways to improve that system?
I think
Do
that they
you
need
think,
to
why
start.
don't you should host a seminar on co-parenting?
I should, but I don't think people listen now. So I think you got to build like some celebrity platform, and then everybody starts listening because we champion
Oh my
celebrities, and
God.
it's people listen to celebrities more than they listen to doctors.
You know what? That is true.
So it's gonna be hard to get those people to listen. So the best thing you can do is you got to take care of home first. You change your home, and you hope that that
Mm,
vibrates throughout the world. But you can't save a
mm,
nation. The number one issue I have with even the systematic racism thing is you're not gonna be able to
mm-hmm.
fix it to save the entire African American race in America. But
Right.
those who have the resources, if you just create platforms or outlets for them to join,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we might join faster. You might change it faster if you create avenues for us. But if you're trying to save the entire world, it's almost like if you look at white America, they're not trying to save the hillbillies. Systems in
No.
place for all the hillbillies to win. They don't want it.
Right.
So you just got to create systems for people to jump in. And I always use Tyler Perry as an example. Don't tell the system what you're going to do. Just create the
Just
platform,
do it.
and then
Right.
people will access it. You build it, they will come.
Right.
So in that same vein, I just think we just need more access to view each case one by one and not as another number.
Yes.
Because every time I've been to some court situation, I feel like they're looking at me like just another nigga in the court. And I hate to say it,
They are.
but that's how I feel I'm being viewed. Even when, in my experience, when we had first split and we were in the courtroom, and they were like,
Mm-hmm.
they knew we were married. No, actually, before they knew we were
Mm-hmm.
married, the judge, white lady, and it's ironic the way the race plays out in court. You got a white judge, you got a black officer, and then you got like a Spanish stenographer. So you have these ethnicities,
Mm-hmm.
all women, viewing me as
Mm-hmm.
one way. So they go through my son's stuff, and they're like, well, you got a son, this and that. You're not taking care of your son. I was like, no, I am taking care of my son. And she was like, oh, you have another child, you have a daughter, and you're not taking care of. I was like, we're still married. I don't even know why we're here. And immediately her tone changed. She was like, oh, you're married? I was like, yeah, we just split up, and I don't know why she's putting me on child support like I haven't been a loving, caring husband.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So she then goes through the numbers and all stuff like that, and she was like, okay, so you'll have to pay an X amount every week out of your paycheck. And then she turned to her and said, do you want money dating from the day the children were born? I said, hold up. I'm a father. I'm a husband. Why are we backdating to the day the children were born? She said, well, that's the law. She's entitled to it if she wants it. I'm like, what type of system is this?
That's fucked up.
But that was my experience. Other people say that wasn't an
Oh.
experience, but that was my experience where I just found out that this system is not a nice system. And I never
Yeah.
want to deal with anything that has to deal with the court, because I feel like if you really wanted to, systematically, that structure, if you ever really want to be nice, you could, but you choose not to. You choose chaos, you choose dysfunction because it benefits you.
I just overall, I've always felt like it was a horrible system because I feel like it's kind of advertised in a sense as like a payback type of thing.
Mhm.
Like, come here if you want to pay back your ex for X amount of things that he's done to you. And I say that only because of what I've seen in my adult life, what I've heard. Like, it's the case of people that go in because they need the help. It is kind of smaller than those who are just like, yeah, girl, you should put your baby daddy on child support so that way he can't have this and he can't have that. You hear more of that type of conversation. And I don't like that because that's what the court is looking for. That's a way for them to continuously keep a hold on us. So I've always been like, fix it, like at least try to do it amongst yourselves, right? You can do it legally or with getting it notarized because you have it there. So now if it does not work out and you guys have no choice but to go to court, at least you gave it a shot. And you can use that like, Your Honor, this is what we worked out on our own. It's just not working. We're looking for a more structured type of thing. If you don't want to be in the system, I feel like you should also help. I know men who have purposely constantly either changing jobs or not working or working a lesser job to avoid having to pay child support. That's fucked up. So the fuck up is on both sides.
It is, but when you hear the story that I went through where they're telling me I got $100 to pay $2,000 in rent because you're saying some person's mismanaging money. I had these kids in this apartment with the notion of us being together and trying to figure it out. Not for it to be divided and now me being in an apartment and New York rent is expensive and trying to figure out how to survive. Like systematically, even if you've been into one of the child support like rooms, if you look at the subliminal messaging, all the posters on the wall don't indicate the reverse. It only indicates one thing: deadbeat dads, dad not giving time, dad not that. And I'm like, I had a whole bunch of male friends who have custody of their children and got child support from the mother. Why is it not messaging for them, those fathers who have custody? That's why I feel like it's a lot of systematic thing inside of it. Then on top of that,
there's a lot of like factors. Systematic is definitely one thing, but there are other factors that contribute to it. So overall, the child support is always going to be a monster with a lot of moving pieces. There's never going to be like one core thing. Because let's just say we remove the systematic thing. Does that remove the bitter baby mama or the bitter baby daddy? They remain who they are. They will still go to court. The difference is that if you remove the systematic part of it, that bitter baby mother is not going to win the way that she knew she was going to win beforehand. So that, there's always going to be a monster with different layers.
And the biggest layer that I'll close this out on is the same women that have the fathers in court for child support and telling their friends, get them for child support, get them for child support, have the same energy and clap when your son hits the same system.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us that are actually dedicated, loving fathers that are trying to understand the system and survive the system, we have sons that's about to go into the same system. And those kids that I saw coming up that are now in the system, their parents are mad, or their mothers are mad that they're going through it. I'm like, but you put the father through it. And he was there. He was loving. He was caring. So can't be mad your son's experiencing the same thing you put the father through. That doesn't make any sense.
So you feeling like it's kind of like karma?
No, I don't feel like it's karma. I just feel like you should have the same energy. The same energy that you said, yeah, give me his money when they taking your son's money. You said, yeah, girl, take all my son's money. That's how I feel.
Bro, let's just be serious here. How many moms are you gonna hear that out their mouth?
Yeah, I know that's the hypocritical.
Right, because truth be told, you're not trying to hear that if anybody was to do that with us. Like, you're not going to sit there and be like, well, girl, like, put yourself in the mom's shoes. That's not what you would say. I understand why you're saying that, but when the role is reversed, it's not going to be that way.
Yeah, but I mentioned it like in the past, like, you got me going through the system and I'm not too fond of it. I love my kids. I do anything for them. So I know why you're doing it. But, our son is going to get older. He might end up dating somebody like you. Are you going to have the same energy when he comes across somebody like you? In this situation, it didn't go over too well, but I was just trying to be direct in the understanding. And don't get me wrong, I don't want nobody to hear this and think that I'm trying to, belittle, berate, or anything like that. I'm talking about real situations, real communicative,
real life shit.
Yeah, like I'm just like, wow, the system and the advantage, and if they saw it case by case and they literally took it case by case, it would have a different outcome. But a lot of times these streamlined systematic things, they don't want a easy outcome. They don't want to take it case by case. They want to lump everything together. And this is what you have.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so as we wrap up this topic, we go into the next
This was
segment.
A juicy one.
Say that again?
This was a juicy one.
Yeah. It's always good hollering at you about these complicated issues.
I feel like I always get chosen for the complicated ones.
Well, we're both parents, so I gotta hit you
that
with
is
the more interesting ones.
true.
A lot of times when I have Damo, It's more, I can't talk to you too much about the parenting because you don't have children yet. So I gotta hit certain people with certain things because they probably already seen it or experienced it. So that's why I say this one.
Okay.
But as we wrap it up, we go to the DNA Decoded, which is a summation of the topic. So how do you want to sum up your framing for this episode for the folks?
Okay. So what I want to say, because I feel like certain things, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm like in a way attacking the women, because I'm not. But I just feel like both parties will do so much better if they address their internal issues with each other and then figure out a more cohesive way to work together with the sole focus of raising their child in a much better emotionally and stable home. We don't realize how emotionally damaging we are to our children. It's not for them the financial part of co-parenting. It's the emotional part. It's teaching them early on what a healthy relationship is all about. And we don't realize that because we're so stuck in our feelings that we miss all of that. And now we got another little angry child in the street who does not know how to effectively communicate because they learn from us. This topic, I feel like, will never, it's not a topic that we won't hear about until we actually do the work. I think in order for it to be removed from the system, like you said, we have to do better as a unit and just start putting our children first and how they feel and how much it will impact them if we're not on the same page. Our children turn into the adults that we are today. And in order for them to be able to have healthy relationships overall, we have to be able to start setting the example. And that requires a lot of self-work, a lot of self-reflection and accountability.
Great, great, great. I'll sum it up by adding on saying, don't use your children as a pawn. If one person is using them as a pawn, they're officially pawns in a game until you're out of the system. So if you use them as a tactic to try to hurt the other person, then you're misguiding not just the family dynamic for your children, but how to overcome this, because we normally tend to repeat what we don't understand. That's why you have generational curses. In order to break a generational curse, you got to actually figure out how do we avoid this for the next generation. The main reason why we don't have generational wealth is because nobody's actually saying, well, we all did it this way and it didn't work out for us. How do we create wealth for the next generation? By making them aware, hey, this is how you avoid this. Look for signs like this. Put your money here because we did. So should have more conversations as a family, even though it's not cookie cutter or anything like that. Have a monthly meeting with you, your baby mama, baby daddy, and your children to say, these are some of the things that we would like to correct. These are some things we want to do more, and give the children an opportunity to have a voice. You never know how far gone your children are if you don't ask them how it affects them. And once you hear how damaging it is for them, then maybe you might be more keen to put your hatreds aside for each other and build a better community.
I agree. Yes, our children need to have a voice, people.
Not that old joint when we were growing up where it was like children not supposed to be heard or seen. They're supposed to be in the back. Nah, that you can't do that.
Hence why we have so many damaged people out here now.
We got children in the back at 4 years old learning how to work an iPad, iPhone, and a computer, while the old folks are sitting together talking about stuff that don't even be relevant to today's time and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Kids out there. Figure out what they want to know. Figure out what's making their brain tick and stuff like that. So
yeah, in this day and age, you need to know what makes their brain tick. I don't need nobody out here plotting against me in my sleep, child. I need to know what's going on.
And trust those devices, those TikToks, those Instagrams, those Facebooks. There's some programming going on. As much as we think we use our phone are programming us to react to certain things That's why you
Hell
get
yeah.
that's why you get those phantom what's it called? Phantom buzzing when your body just shakes for some reason. You check your phone immediately.
Wait, what's that?
You never had your body like when your phone is on vibrate and you feel it vibrate, you check your phone, but sometimes your phone don't be on you, but you thought your body vibrate, so you look at your phone immediately, like, did I just get a text message or a buzz or something?
No.
Never peeped that?
No. Now I'm gonna be like paying attention.
It's called like the phantom vibrates. It's kind of like your body is so used to being triggered by your phone that you automatically, like Pavlov's dogs, like ring the bell, give them steak, ring the bell, give them steak. Eventually take away the steak and keep ringing the bell. They're gonna keep coming to the bell because they know that there's something coming behind it. So
Right.
yeah. So I blame our
Well,
phone's
that probably
programmers.
doesn't apply to me because my phone be on either silent or do not disturb. So maybe that's why I'm missing it.
That's why I text you and be like, yeah, and I just wait for you to respond. She don't respond immediately, that means her phone off.
Yeah, like if I don't respond, that's 1,000% right. The phone is absolutely off. But do not disturb is my go-to for most times, especially during work. But other than that, like I definitely check it. But I've never paid attention to that. I feel like I need to take all that off and just keep my phone on at least vibrate or something and see what happens. Very interesting.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So this is another episode of Relationship DNA. Thank you, Dina, for coming out and representing, aka
Of course.
Didi.
Hey, that's supposed to be between you and I. I cannot believe you told these people what you called me. Oh. Yeah, if somebody even says to me, Didi, I'm still gonna fight you.
If they do say that, that means people are watching, which is a good thing.
It is a good thing, but that is what no one was supposed to know that. I cannot. Well, it was a great time as always. I can't wait to do it again.
Yes. Can't wait to speak to you again. So love you, sis, and everybody.
Love you too, bro.
Love y'all too.
Thanks, y'all guys. Later. See you later. Oh, okay. You just want to get at this. Love you, bro. Be safe.
All right.